Oh dear. Another Friday, another joke. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Download, which is
the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live.
Ooh.
fantastic.
I think I've almost got that. Almost.
Yeah, but it's Rob's superpower, that is, isn't it?
That's right.
So,
I'm not good at much, but the little things.
We none of us even thought that, let alone said it, my friend. So it's great to be here. So this time, I think certainly in the UK, we've all been blessed with fantastic weather the last week or so, and it made us think about the summer vibe. We were having a chat earlier in the week, and we said, summer's here, kind of makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then we thought, well, why does summer make you feel good? And I assume that it's because of all of the associated memories you have. So it's not just the fact the weather's nice and it's nice to go out and you feel the sun on your body and everything. It's the fact that you've got lots of associations with that. And when you look back, it's those associations that are the things that you remember. So when you think about your favorite movie, it isn't just how good was the movie. It's who did you see the movie with? Did you have a good time? Was the popcorn good? And all of that kind of thing. So when you have your conversations with your prospects and your clients, how do you make them feel about that? How do you make them look back on that moment, whether it was a good or a bad time? Do you make that enjoyable for them? Do you even give it any consideration? Because actually, oddly, I don't give that consideration. And Tim and I have, when we've spoken about when we speak at events, for example, we always say, rule number one is you have to entertain. But actually, do you do that in a one-to-one, in a more office-like environment? So what do we all think about that? Do we put entertainment at the top of our list of priorities when we're talking to people?
Do we want to do introductions, or do we want to go right
into
it?
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. I mean,
people just know us by now because we're the
I know who I am.
Business talk show.
So, Rob, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome from wherever you are. I'm Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results, just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. We help startups scale, and we are a proud DLA Ignite partner.
Yes.
Tim.
My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. I'm just back from Italy and I'm wearing a Ducati t-shirt.
Yes.
Nice. Jensen.
Hi all, Jensen Abbott here at Supero. I'm a B2B social interactions and influence coach and also a happy and proud partner of DLA Ignite.
Tracy.
Hello, everyone. I am Tracy Borison, founder of TLB Coaching and Events, where we're all about optimizing sales and marketing processes and people. And so I feel like my glasses went crooked today, so I'm probably going to be adjusting them a lot. So apologies in advance for that. But I too am a very proud DLA Ignite partner.
Alex.
Hello all, Alex Abbott, founder of Supero. We're a B2B sales consultancy focusing on social selling and value selling. And I too am a proud DLA Ignite partner.
And I'm Adam Gray. I'm also co-founder of DLA Ignite and Tim's business partner. And I guess I'm not a proud DLA Ignite partner because I'm not a partner. I'm just part of DLA Ignite. But I'm proud about it, and I'm proud to have you guys as partners. So back to the question. Thank you, Tracy. Back to the question. Do you even give it any thought about entertaining people?
Entertaining? No, not entertaining for the sake of entertaining, but engaging and memorable and impactful and helpful. Helpful's a big one for me. I like to think of myself as a teacher, as a helper. So when I'm engaging with somebody in a conversation, whether it's me trying to sell them something or me just trying to meet them, I always am looking for, well, where's that opportunity to help?
Yeah, I would say for me, I don't think about entertaining, but I also feel like when I think of entertaining, it looks like juggling. Like, I don't know why that is. Also, because I'm terrible at juggling, and my son thinks it's hilarious because I try to do it and drop balls all over the place. So to me, that's entertaining. I also have like a performance arts background, so like dance and things like that. To me, that's what feels performy. But when I have conversations with people, I'm not there to do that. I'm there to connect with them. And so like all of my activities are tied to listening to what they share and connect dots for them, connect them with me with similar stories. It's really just all about connection and creating. I don't even know that I have an intention per se of creating a memorable experience, but my goal is to be enough of myself so that if that is meaningful to someone, then they will remember.
Yeah.
I think that's a good standpoint for this.
Yeah. I think for me, it's I've always tried to create what I consider to be a value exchange. So I do want the recipient to feel like they've come away from the conversation having learned something. In addition to the things that you were saying, Rob, about helping, and what you were saying, Tracy. But it's an interesting one. I think given the way things are going and how difficult we find it in business to stand out and look different and make an impact. I do think, entertaining and thinking about how we make other people feel is something. If there's going to be one thing I take away from this session today is consciously thinking about that some more.
Well, and I would say just from like the entertainment perspective, what it makes me think is like, do I want the people I'm talking to feel entertained, or do I want people to feel like they are informed, connected, seen, heard, appreciated? Those are some of the things that I look for. And so there's many places you can go to be entertained. I like the movies. That's not what I go to my like connections, virtual chats, LinkedIn network for. I go to those people for a different type of experience. So I think it's kind of equal parts. What type of experience do we want to create for people, and what do we want to serve them? What do we think our quote unquote audience or community, or however you want to see that, is coming here for? Are they coming here for entertainment?
I guess we've got to define what entertainment means to each of us. So, given the topic of the discussion today about, films, one of my favorites is Moneyball, if you know it. Brad Pitt as a Major League Baseball coach compiles a team of, kind of past its, but recruiting them based on specific skills that when combined, they play better as a team. And so that was incredibly entertaining for me. But I think what I really enjoyed was the fact that there was a lot of thought behind and analysis behind how he recruited people and how he compiled that team to end up winning.
But surely when you're having a conversation with somebody, or when you're presenting something, or you're at some kind of venue and you're addressing a person or a group of people, your expertise is sort of implicit, isn't it? That's what you're going there to talk about, and it's not so much about the fact that entertainment is instead of that, but more that it's additional to that. Because you think back to any event that you've been to, and the most memorable talks that you see at the event are the talks that make you laugh the hardest. Now, I'm not saying that humor is necessarily the same thing as entertainment, and I'm not saying that we should all try to be stand-up comedians, but the ones that really entertain you are the ones that are sticky, and the ones that have you sitting at the edge of your seat. And Robert said this, you want them awake. Yeah, That's the point. If you get somebody laughing or get them up on their feet, or you get them entertained. I want you all to stand on your head or rub your head and rub your stomach or whatever it is. It's kind of like a bit of fun, and that's the bit that opens the door to the learning or the message to become memorable, rather than just another person sharing a good idea.
So I think part of the challenge is that there were two different contexts. You were talking about when you deliver a speech to an audience, and then you asked, how are you when you're talking with prospects? When I'm delivering a speech to an audience, it's a one-to-many, one-way exchange. When I'm speaking with a prospect, it's generally a one-to-one, two-way exchange. It's hard to be, it's inauthentic to me to be entertaining in that one-on-one exchange. I would much rather be inquisitive and curious and helpful. But I agree with the premise. When I am delivering to an audience, I absolutely do try to be entertaining. If I can get a laugh, even if it's a bit of self-depreciating humor, just to show them that I am human, I am trying to be my authentic self in that context, then absolutely, I find humor very helpful.
Adam, getting some stick on your intro.
I was just going to add. I think you can make any conversation entertaining if you kind of put three things into that conversation. That's you being authentic, you bring an energy to the table, and you also bring an insight. I think if you bring those three to the table in any conversation, whether it's business related or on a specific topic, the conversation is going to be entertaining, for sure. So I think if you bring them three to the table, bring a lot of their energy, be authentic, and you bring insight into that, I think then that's the kind of building the foundation of an entertaining conversation.
I love Jensen's formulas. They're always so well composed. And so I love that, Jensen. And I also think, so I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and Duncan Wardle was the kind of like opening keynote speaker. He's Disney's chief creativity and innovation officer. If you ever get the chance to hear him speak, please take it. It was like well worth the $300 ticket just to hear him speak. But one of the things that was really interesting to me is that I was confused. I was confused whether or not this was entertainment, whether or not this was informative, whether or not this was challenging me to think differently. Like, there were all of the components of that, but it actually ended up being, while I like very much enjoyed it and took like 8 pages of notes away from it, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if you were here to entertain. And then there were some other keynote speakers that were like clearly there to entertain. And then there were some that were clearly there for informative purposes, but there was I would say like a confusion from me. And I think it came from like the conference overall. I don't think the conference knew what it was trying to be, so it was trying to be all things. But I think there's also something to be said there about us knowing what we're here to do. And if all of us will have slightly different definitions of what entertaining is or what it looks like for us to be entertaining. But we get to decide. Do we want to show up and be entertaining today? Do we want to show up and be like, hey, this is a serious topic? I would say some of my like most impactful one-on-ones have been like not on the entertaining side, because the person I'm talking to is like not in a space to be entertained. They are in a space to need support. And that also leads to memorability. So it's again, like a balance of what am I here to deliver versus like intentionally what am I creating?
Yeah, well, maybe, but surely a comedian is entertaining, but comedy isn't the only entertainment. So Dumb and Dumber is an entertaining movie. Schindler. I'm kind of, you know what I mean.
It's one of my husband's favorites, and every time he watches it, I'm like, really?
Schindler's List is an entertaining movie, and that's about as far from comedy as you can possibly get. So I think that comedy and entertainment are not necessarily, there's a bit of overlap in this Venn diagram, but they're not superimposed on each other. So yes, you can stand up to address your audience, be that an audience of one or an audience of 1,000, and you can make them laugh, or you can entertain them by telling them a good story. Someone else, here we are. Robert said about don't tell anything without a purpose. Yeah, you can take them on a journey by telling them a story, but surely what you want is for people to leave that engagement, whether it's one-on-one or 100-on-1. You want them to leave that engagement saying, that was really good. I really enjoyed being part of that process. And I think that's a really important thing, because it's like saying, well, you're not here to have fun, you're here to work. Well, why can I not do both? Why can I not enjoy being at work and have that as being fun? And that is potentially something that we should be looking at doing with our prospects and our clients. We should make sure that they want to come back because A, they learned something, but B, they had a really good time chatting to us.
Yeah.
So Alex, what was it about Moneyball that made it one of your favorite movies? Was it the thought around analytics or the storyline?
I think the analysis was one thing, but ultimately I'd have to say it was the fact that the underdog could win, right? You don't have to have the most money in the major league or the best players in the Premiership. You can actually, with a lot more thought and the right people, the right insight, you can pull a winning team together that can compete against the best and win.
It's a true story, isn't it, Rob?
Yes.
That's our baseball expert.
Right. And a lot of teams are now trying to replicate that, not just in baseball anymore.
Well, we've got Wrexham Football Club, a little Welsh football club here in the United Kingdom. Rob,
I saw them on Hulu.
And is it Ryan Reynolds and his partner,
Yeah.
whose name escapes me, have bought this?
Rob McKinney.
Because no one can pronounce it.
Bought this football club that were national league, so they weren't pro, and they've just made it into the Pro League, League Two, this season. It's an amazing story.
We love a good underdog story, but the reason I ask is because, if you don't mind me sharing, one of my favorite movies is Princess Bride, and the story itself is entertaining. The characters are funny, and there is an underdog story to it. Yeah, thank you. Yes, and a lot of classic lines. But it wasn't the movie itself that it made it so endearing to me. I remember going to see this movie, not having heard about it. It was myself and my girlfriend at the time going to the 11:30 showing at night, 11:30 showing of this movie. And we were about 6 people in the theater total. And 5 minutes into it, my girlfriend fell asleep. So I'm there in this huge theater, immersed in this beautiful story, this elegant scenery, this fairy tale story. And it was as though they were just speaking solely to me. I can still remember the popcorn bag that I was holding. I can still remember every little nuance of that night. And it was a great story, absolutely. But I wonder if it was the storyline that made it one of my favorites, or the memories that surrounded it. Because the director had no control over anything other than what they put on screen. Hey.
So many good lines, right?
Priceless.
Oh, but that's my point. I have so many memories of so many other things that where the person who created it didn't have control over some of those elements. And yet those elements were what made it meaningful and impactful to me. So taking it back to the context of when you're speaking with a prospect, how do you control for that? Sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to intentionally deliver some of those memorable elements, and it doesn't have to be an over-the-top humorous approach to it. It's just trying to be memorable.
Yeah, I've got a story myself, Rob. This time my girlfriend didn't fall asleep, but so this was quite a few years ago now. So my 21st birthday, my dad bought me and my girlfriend at the time a holiday. A week in Spetses, a Greek island. Actually, the girl is now my wife. So this is Jackie coming up to my 21st birthday. And this Greek island was a tiny little island. One of the highlights was getting the Slovakis from the little wagon that was parked, just near the beach. There was one disco or nightclub, Adam.
Thanks.
All nightclubs now, if anyone saw Sales TV on Tuesday. And there was this beaten up old outdoor cinema with stone seating. And we went to the cinema, sitting outside, thinking this is weird, and we watched Cool Runnings, if you've ever seen
Oh, great film. Great film.
And Weekend at Bernie's, which was great, but it's
That
more.
was up for an Oscar, wasn't it?
What, did they not have a copy of Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah.
But it's
Different years they were nominated.
It's all the years later when those films come back on telly, and then you can reminisce about that holiday that we had when we were kind of bootstrapping and had no money. I'm grateful that my dad sort of bought us that holiday for my 21st, and I had no money.
Well, and I think that kind of speaks to what Rob said about like the people who were showing those movies that day had no idea that you were going to be in the audience that day and you were going to build those relationships with those movies. There's a element of chance really that happens in all of these scenarios. But if we go back to what Jensen said about authenticity, then if I think the moments we remember the most are moments where we were tapped into our authenticity. Like, what are the things that are important to us? Alex likes Moneyball because he likes the underdog story. Does everyone like the underdog story? Probably not, right? Or they prefer other things, right? I'm a big fan of Princess Bride myself. It's in my top 5. And I just feel like there's like, it hits on so many things. But for me too, I always find myself coming back to, especially when I watch movies or TV shows, things that are about personal branding. So, because that's something that is relevant to me, is authentic to me, that authentically matters to me. And so the thing that keeps coming to mind for me is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the like claymation one. and now it makes me sad because I have to work really hard to find it on TV now at Christmas, and I need it on like DVD or something to be old school. But like that show, to me, I always loved it before I even knew that I cared about personal branding. And I'm like, literally, this is a story about somebody who is different, who at the end of the day is like, I'm different and this is awesome, instead of I'm different and I should run away. And like, this is pretty much the narrative of my life. And so it's interesting now to look at those things and be like, oh, like I really connect with the things that are pieces of me. Yeah, Robert, there's a lot of movies, man. A lot of good movies. But Shawshank Redemption is also up there, and it's not even close to the same style of movie.
Citizen Kane is the best movie of all time. But that said, so Alex, you went and saw Cool Runnings, and it was a particularly enjoyable film for you because you were with your girlfriend at the time, who later became your wife, and it was
Also
a lovely
an underdog movie.
Yeah, it was a lovely
Saying.
it was a lovely environment, and it was a lovely treat to be there. And subsequently, you watch the film 10 years later, and you realise it's not a very good film. So no, it's not a criticism of Cool Runnings.
It's still a great film. Weekend and Bernie's.
And Weekend, I mean, look, Andrew, it's a highly unappreciated film, Weekend and Bernie's.
Says
Yeah.
Andrew.
But the point is that that when you go back to revisit these things, you can't be in the same situation. You don't get that same sense of surprise. You don't get the same sense of joy. You don't, not necessarily with the same people. You're not feeling the same way. It's not in the same environment. So how does that translate to you have some sort of interaction with a prospect, and the prospect thinks, this is really good. I really like this guy, or girl. They made me laugh, or they really entertained me, or it was really factual, or whatever. And then they come to see you again. Either they book a call or they come to another event that you're speaking at, expecting more of the same, and they don't get it and they're disappointed. Does that happen?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I would say,
When I was in
especially if you're not
college-
being authentic.
When I was in college, there was a great T-shirt being sold on the campus, and I still remember it to this day, even years ago.
Well, 12 years ago when you were at college.
Yeah, something like that. You can always retake a class. You can never relive a party. That was
Facts.
brilliant. You can try and replicate it. Have the exact same people attend the party the following week. Have the exact same venue, the exact same everything. But that magic just doesn't reignite. It's different every time.
Yeah. There's a few words that are coming to my mind as you ask that question, Adam. Things like inspirational, authentic, Jensen, you've mentioned, humble, intellectual connection. When you have that connection and then suddenly it's just you and them in the room, and you're having that back and forth. I think that's when there's the kind of like if there's a meeting of the minds, if we're thinking about a business meeting, or you've made someone really think about something, because they hadn't quite thought about it like that, challenge their thinking.
So how do you replicate that? So you have your first meeting with somebody, and let's be honest, the first meeting we have with most people, we've got a fairly low expectation of how that person is going to be in the meeting, because the world teaches you that most people are a disappointment. So you enter the meeting expecting something quite mediocre, and you're blown away by how good that. How do you replicate that the second time?
I don't think you can guarantee it, but you can certainly prepare for it.
Okay, so what would your advice be about preparing for it so that somebody is equally impressed the second time as they were the first?
Yeah, do your research. Do your research about them. If you know people that also know them, ask them about them.
I think there's just again, there's some degree of I don't know how I want to say it, but permission that you need to give yourself in knowing that another person, even in your interaction, I can't control the other person. I can't control if they had a bad day. I can't control if they're hungry. I can't control, I'm a completely different person when I'm hungry, right? I can't control those things about the other person. And so if I go into any kind of interaction contributing what I can contribute today, which is different on any given day in any given interaction, being myself, saying what I believe in a kind way, right? These types of things that are just I consider it showing up and being yourself. I think the risk becomes lower. And I'm just thinking about, I show up and I do conversations like this. I have one-on-one conversations with people. I do my no pitch networking events, and I show up in a different capacity in each of those events. But I would guess that most people who have seen me in those different ones feel the same, That the feeling they get from being in a Tracy related event is there's like this Tracy fairy dust that exists. And that's me being me. And while I might, in one scenario, like when we have our conversations about community, I have lots to say about community. I run my own community. I have things I've learned. I have things that don't work. I have lots of things that can contribute. When we talk about AI, I have more questions and I'm curious to learn about other people's things. So I'm not showing up and being entertaining all the time. I'm not showing up and being entertaining at No Pitch Networking. I'm showing up and creating space for people to create connections. So I think there's this like separation between who we are being and what we are doing, and that memorable experience comes more from who we're being than what we're doing.
Yes.
Or not.
would agree.
Open to debate.
No, I think you're completely right. As you were talking, I was thinking about so I love TED Talks, and I've watched hundreds and hundreds of TED Talks, and one of my favorites is the first 2 talks given by Sir Ken Robinson about education, and he's very entertaining and he's very funny, but there are some really hard-hitting points. So he does one of these TED Talks at the proper TED place in California. And then they invite him back to give a second talk, maybe 5 years later. So he walks onto the stage and he said, "It's 5 years since I was last here. And it was great. I got such fantastic feedback and it became one of the most downloaded talks of all time. So I'd like to pick up where I left off." So as I was saying, and then he immediately launches into the talk as if it had been just a few moments beforehand. And I think that things like that draw people in, and that's part of the entertainment. The reason it's entertaining is because it resonates with you. The reason that it's memorable is because it resonates with you. The reason that you learn something is because you're listening, because it resonates with you. So trying to make it resonate, and you're right, Tracy, being authentic, being yourself is the thing that isn't going to change from one meeting to the next. So what sort of things can we do to facilitate that, do we think, to be as engaging and as relevant and as interesting as possible to people?
So I think to what Robert said, he mentioned his skilled speaker with passion equals a great event, and a skilled speaker without passion equals crap event. I think that also links to the energy. If you're bringing enough energy and passion into a conversation, you're going to build excitement with the individual. If they know what you're talking about, or if they're brand new to the topic, you're going to build that excitement. Because I'm sure if you were to go to a talk and someone's just going, "Hi, my name's Jensen," this. After a while, you're going to be like, "This is boring. There's no passion, there's no excitement." Whereas if someone kind of had that energy, the passion, and brought you into the conversation, you also have that shared sense of purpose as well. You feel like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I actually belong here. I should be here. This is something that I want to learn." So back to Robert's point, I think that's a great point with speaking with passion for sure. I think that's one way that it can help.
I want to pick up on what Kevin M. had just posted. He said, "Listening to you all tell your stories, what speaks to me is the scenery. Imagining myself in your place, experiencing the same things, and immersing myself in the feelings that you felt when experiencing it." I remember listening to an audiobook last week. And when I got home, I wanted to look something up. I had the book itself, and I was thumbing through, and I knew I was on this chapter, but I didn't know what page it was. I could remember, I was at, I walk along the golf course. I was at this hole when this was spoken about. Flip back a few pages because it was a few holes earlier on the golf course that I was listening to that. So that's me relating the scenery, which is completely unrelated to the book, to what I'm now reading in that text. And that's what I was trying to convey earlier, where things that the creator did not intend or even know about have an influence on how we react to that. So back to the point about, well, how do we plan for that? How do we recreate that? You actually don't. You have to plan for the audience bringing their authentic selves to the experience as well. So that's where you have to, the less is more approach comes to mind. You have to have one concept in mind that you're trying to convey. And with that, I think you can replicate it even with a different audience, a different scene, and them bringing different elements to it. It's just keeping it simple, keeping it that one idea that you want to convey, whether it's a 30-minute speech or a 30-second introduction.
Now, I don't know about the rest of the panel or indeed the people in the audience, but I'm still wrestling with the picture of Rob on the golf course myself.
Not golfing, reading a book or listening to a book.
Right.
Well, one of the things that came up for me in what you just shared, Rob and Jensen, and what you were sharing as well, is that I think there's like a personality alignment piece of this too, right? So like, I don't know that every other single person who listened to Duncan Wardle speak had the same relationship that I did, right? Like my immediate reaction was like, I need to know this guy. Let's connect on LinkedIn. We need to be friends. Like, how come we don't know each other already? And luckily he accepted my LinkedIn connection, which was very exciting for me. But I don't know that everyone else had that experience. We were aligned. We were aligned in an enthusiasm way. We were aligned in the importance of his conversation way. We were aligned in like, he made us get up and talk to the people next to us. I'm down with that, right? Like, that's fun for me. So like, how he did it is how I like things to be done. There was another keynote about the metaverse, which I was super excited to go to because I wanted to learn more about it. And I like almost fell asleep. Because it was so technical and it was very like, I'm sure there was some great information there. There were some people who were just like writing mad notes, like really enjoying that style of presentation. And I couldn't get through to me at all. Like it just, all of it went over my head. And that doesn't make it a bad presentation. That makes it a bad presentation for me. And I think one of the other important things here when we talk about authenticity is that if Duncan Wardle had shown up to do a metaverse presentation, I might have picked up more things about the metaverse because the way he does things is more aligned with how I consume information. See, I can't even remember the guy, and I'm pretty sure he's famous for metaverse something. Like, I don't know what he was talking about, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't meaningful to his people. So I also think it's important to tap into that authenticity of us, knowing that we're going to resonate with some people, we're going to be memorable for some people, and we're going to be completely irrelevant to some people. And it's not about entertaining all people or informing all people or connecting with all people. It's about connecting, informing, being memorable for our people.
So on that point as well, Tracy, is so when I think it was Adam asked the question of what's your favorite movie, to kind of do a bit of research on that for today. I always used to struggle with actors and when they would play one role in one movie and then they would change role in a different movie, because I always got bought into the fact that actor, that's them as a person. So I'd sit there and be like, oh, I don't like that person, I don't like that actor, oh, they're a bad character. But the movie that I picked for being my favorite was actually The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. And the reason for that was, well, there's a number of reasons. Is all of my childhood movies seem to have starred him. So like, I think it's George of the Jungle, you've got The Mummy, there's a couple, Looney Tunes, again, a brilliant movie. But then what I kind of soon later learned recently was how his career kind of got turned upside down after The Mummy, and with The Rock kind of stepping in. And The Rock was this figure with muscles and he's the next big star. And all of a sudden, kind of Brendan Fraser disappeared for 10 years and no one really heard of him, where he went, what he was doing. And all of a sudden he came out, and this is the reason why I loved his journey, is because you could see how hard he worked. He had to put on so much weight for his role, The Whale, which was almost like the comeback comeback position in his career, right? And just to see how happy he was that people could see how hard he worked at the premiere was, for me, it was kind of like oh, well done, mate. I could really connect on that. But it's that kind of cements my favorite movies. It's also the actors that play, and can you connect with that actor? What's the reason that you connect with that actor? And there was a lot, right? I was young. I would look at Brendan Fraser and The Mummy and think, oh, he's a pretty well-built guy. Oh, he's attractive. He's funny. Oh, yeah, that's and you then connect with those actors, and then you tend to find that your favorite movies tend to star your favorite actors for sure.
Yeah, well, I used to be scared of The Mummy. I remember.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I can't lie. When I was watching it about 8 years old, and
Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad.
A real bait out there.
But I think this is interesting too, right? Because it's almost like we go on the journey with our favorite actors, but we choose to go on the journey. And one of the things that's coming up for me, so like I love Dan Brown as an author. Like Angels and Demons is one of my favorite books after The Hobbit. I have other things to say about The Hobbit as a movie too. But I have this problem when I read a book first and then they make the movie and the characters. So like Tom Hanks, I love Tom Hanks, great actor, right? He's not Robert Langdon. And it drives me nuts every time I watch those movies. So I'm like, this is wrong. This is like, love you as an actor, but no, this is not right for me. And again, like there's probably lots of people who are like, oh my God, what a great choice for Robert Langdon. But for me, I'm like, no, that's wrong. And so like all of us are having these like different experiences. And I can't remember if it was Robert or who said earlier on in the chat that there's a difference between like creating from a one-way narrative. Like I'm creating a movie and I don't know what the state of the people who are going to be consuming this is. I have to create for everyone. Same thing as like a stage presentation. But when I'm in those one-on-one interactions, I'm not creating for everyone. I'm creating for one person. So like Alex said earlier, what do I know about that one person? What do I know worked the first time? What created connection the first time? How can I provide opportunities for those types of connections to be ignited again?
DLA Ignite.
There you go.
Boom.
So along the lines of not being able to control the person receiving it, I remember the 7th Star Wars movie, the first of their last reboot, was one of my and my family's favorite movies. And it wasn't so much for the movie itself. The movie itself, looking back on it, was pretty good. But it was everything leading up to it. It had come out around Christmas time. So the family decided before we watched the 7th one, we were going to watch all 6 at home. And we did. Well, over the course of 3 or 4 days, we had binge watched 6 movies together. What a fantastic, and it was Christmas time and just all this togetherness. So we're so looking forward to going to the theater and seeing that. And we came out of the theater and just loved it. So fast forward 2-3 more years, when the 8th one is coming out, same type of scenario. Christmas time, we binge watch all of them. We're talking about what we expect, and the movie itself was horrible, in our opinion, and it ruined the whole franchise for us, and it ruined that whole experience. That last one that came out, we didn't even bother. No, we're not going to binge watch them. We're not going to. Yeah, we're going to see it, but just because we kind of felt like we had to finish it. But it's that whole reliving a party. We had all of the same characters, but a very different outcome.
But so isn't the problem here that The Princess Bride is a great film? The Princess Bride 2 may not be a great film. Not that there is a Princess Bride 2.
Right.
You watch The Bourne Identity and you go, it's a brilliant film. And you watch Die Hard and you go, it's a brilliant film. And you watch Star Wars and you go, it's a brilliant film. And you watch all of these things because it is the aggregation of all of these different elements, some of which are within the film company's control and some of which are not. Some of which are absolutely about you and your family sitting and binge watching the first 15 films before you go to the cinema to watch the 16th film. And the problem is that so much of that is outside of your control. So maybe the answer is to and somebody might have said this, I can't think who it was, that you just be authentic. So you rock up. I know exactly who it was, of course, Tracy. You rock up and you are authentically yourself, and you try to be helpful, and you try to create a value add, but you don't try to replicate the massively successful meeting that you had last time, because actually what you don't want is to be held accountable based on the last meeting, which just happened to work perfectly. And you're simply trying to turn up and do the best job you can do, given the tools that you have at your disposal.
So then, Adam, would you say then it would be good to be able to adapt to the different scenarios, right? Because if you are just going to be genuine and authentic and you can't control how the other person, I don't know how their mood or attitude may be, but being able to adapt to that person to then change the way that you can communicate, would you say then that would be the best piece of advice, maybe?
Yeah. So Tim and I have been on calls with people where we've known the people quite well, and the people are very proud, confident, tough people. And then sometimes you come to calls with those very same people and they're not. The situation is they're under a huge amount of pressure, or something isn't panning out as they thought it was going to pan out. And you have to interact with them in a very different way to how you normally would.
Yeah.
Whereas perhaps, sometimes the conversation with them will be very much of yes, no, tug your forelock, and I'm going to be very subservient. And sometimes actually they're not in a place where that's going to work.
Yeah.
And maybe the answer is to take each of those interactions and each of those meetings and each of those engagements on an engagement by engagement basis. Sometimes we're all in a good mood. Sometimes we're feeling very positive, and sometimes we're not. And actually, as the person that is the vendor in that situation, you want to make sure that you are being not just the helpful, educational, supportive person, but the person that you need to be to help the buyer through the process.
Yeah.
And sometimes that will be metaphorically putting an arm around their shoulders and just giving them a hug and saying, it's going to be okay. This is all right.
Equally, you can help set things up, Jensen, in terms of, helping to prepare ahead of the meeting, setting an agenda, perhaps having a call with that individual prior to the actual meeting.
Yeah.
And I think that the challenge that we all have is that increasingly we're cramming more and more stuff into our day, and all of these things take time, don't they? And sometimes that's time where you actually have to invest time in doing something. I've got my first call with Rob today, therefore I need to look at Rob's profile, look at some of Rob's posts, see where Rob's at, see what he's talking about, so I can empathize with Rob and be at least educated and understanding of what it is that he does. But equally, sometimes that is for 10 minutes before the call. I need to turn the lights off and I need to lie back with my arms folded and meditate in order to get myself in a headspace where I can be reactive to what goes on in the moment.
Yeah.
And actually, all of this stuff takes time. And I think that one of the things, certainly that I've learned over the years, is that if you don't carve out those little bits of time, even if it's only just a few minutes here and there, then you're setting yourself up for a catastrophe. And to say I haven't got time is a very dangerous thing to do, because to not invest 5 minutes before the meeting to stretch my legs and to have a walk around and to close my eyes could sink the culmination of a year's worth of prep work to get to that point.
Yeah.
And I think that part of this surely is about us giving ourselves permission to do these things in order that we can be our best selves. And maybe that is being entertaining and joking, and maybe that's not. Maybe that's about being supportive, or maybe that's about really examining the person that we're talking to and trying to empathize with them and put ourselves in their shoes. Or maybe it's just about doing some background.
Yeah. 100%.
I
So
think for me in that, like, even when people say like, I haven't got time, right? My brain always says, you haven't made time.
Yeah, you choose not to have time.
Like we can all fill our time with lots of things, right? What do you choose to spend your time on? Do you choose to look at someone's, literally looking at someone's profile before a call takes 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to read everything in detail and be able to recite back their work history, right? It's about like having that vibe. And it's also about like just giving yourself the time to think about how would I, if I was going to show up optimally for a meeting, for a presentation, I have a friend who, like, when she does a presentation, she can like really work herself up. So she takes the entire day before and just does like breathing and journaling and meditation. And quite honestly, if she can take an entire day to prep for that, then we all have time. So it's more, I think it's about asking ourselves that question. What could allow me to optimally show up? What kind of energy do I want to bring to this meeting? And if I'm not feeling it, then what are the things that I do that can get me into that vibe? I was talking to a client yesterday, and she was like, sometimes I just don't feel inspired to write content. And then I'm like, I'll write an advocacy post. And then I don't know, of course, because you don't know that you're feeling like an advocate today. But my recommendation for her was like, what are the places that inspire you? Is one of the reasons why I do this show, to be honest with you, because I know that I'm going to get interesting conversations, new perspectives, and energy, and that my energy as I come is welcome here.
and spending time with really cool people.
Yeah.
You're here for the free swag.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we got free swag, guys. Just saying. Anyway, but all of us have those different things that drive energy for us. Maybe it is yoga or breathing. Maybe it's having, like, I was sick earlier this week, and I got back into my like coffee chats yesterday, and I was like, oh, I need these. Like, I literally need conversations with new people to drive my energy. That's a thing that drives my energy. It might be a thing that sucks your energy. It's just important to pay attention to the things that drive your energy and say, like, if I want to come energized to this presentation or LinkedIn Live or client call, what do I need to do to get my best self ready for that?
Yeah, but also part of it is just about acknowledging that if you sit around and wait for inspiration, you might be sitting around for a long time.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to write a post today. Sometimes the post flows. Sometimes the post doesn't flow. Sometimes I have to work at it. I'm going to come to a call or a live or a face-to-face meeting with someone or speak at an event. And sometimes I'm going to be absolutely up for it, and sometimes I'm not. But actually, that's the point of being a grown-up, isn't it? Is that sometimes you've got to do things that you don't want to do or you're not quite in the mood for. And actually, further to your point, Tracy, sometimes it's very easy to give yourself permission not to do something. And then when eventually you have to go back and do it, all of a sudden you go, do you know, I've really missed this. So if we don't do a live one week for whatever reason, when we're coming to it the next week, I feel really keyed up and like, oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. And the same with writing a post. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll write a post and I'll go, oh, I really enjoyed that. And often, I had a conversation with Alex yesterday, and I said, I'm going to write a post about this. And then I immediately wrote a post about it. And actually, sometimes those things just drop out of the air into your laps, and sometimes they don't. But you have to just do it. I don't feel like going to work today. I'm sorry, this isn't primary school.
I did do that once, and I will say it was like the best day.
Yeah,
I went to the office and I looked at my computer and I was like, nope.
It was Tracy Burrison's day off.
Yeah.
on your point as well, Tracy, when people say, I don't have time, and you said, oh, it's because you haven't made time. I saw a really cool video actually. And it was, if I gave you £1,440 every day, and I said at the end of the day that £1,440 you would make sure you would spend that full £1,440. So then why is that different with time? Because you get 1,440 minutes. So why do we not make sure that we use those minutes up in the best way possible? Because when the new day comes, the 1,440 minutes reset. And that really kind of stuck to me and thought, actually, yeah, how many times do we sit here and it's 1 o'clock and we go, no, that's enough now. Instead of actually going, my minutes is now at 400 minutes and I've got 400 minutes left of the day to get something done and planned. Just thought I would share that because it was a really cool video that I saw, actually. So yeah,
a great book on that is Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography, Total Recall, and he said that one of the reasons that he loved the role of the Terminator is he thought, if I was a machine, I wouldn't have to sleep, so that means I would get 6 or 7 or 8 hours extra time per day to do so. It's an incredibly inspirational book. But you talking about the day off, and now people may have heard me say this, but in my 20s, I worked at this company. We worked really, really hard, really, really long hours. And one day, I think my girlfriend at the time and I had got like free Eurostar tickets or free shuttle tickets to drive over to France. So it's really early in the morning, and I pick up the phone and I go, "Oh, I'm feeling really ill. I can't come in today." And they're like, "Oh, I hope you feel better tomorrow." And then I ran out and got in the car and we drove down to Folkestone and went across on the ferry to France, thinking it's going to be just like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Sadly, though, it was Bastille Day in France. So everything was shut. Even the hypermarkets were shut. So we basically drove over there, parked the car on the beach, sat on the beach without any food or anything, sat on the beach, and then got in the car and got the Eurostar back. And it was like, yeah. The reality is that you've sometimes just got to suck it up, and trying to take shortcuts doesn't really help because you don't get out what you think you're going to get out.
I don't know. On the day I took off, there's like
no, we're supposed to be inspiring people not to take days off.
You should take meaningful days off. Also, if you're going to take a day off, make it meaningful. Literally, I've done this once in my entire career, and it was like super meaningful to me. And I partially did it because at that time, Carter, my now husband, he had Fridays and Saturdays off instead of Saturday, Sundays. And it was a Friday. And I was like, nope. So I called him and I'm like, do you want to go to the mountains for lunch? And he was like, yeah, I do. And it was February or something. And there's this little tiny island in the middle of the lake, which I've always been like, oh, I'd love to go out to that little island and like take a kayak or whatever. And the lake was frozen. So we walked across the lake to the island and then have these pictures of us on this island. And every time I drive by it, I'm like, we were out there. And so, but I mean, again, like that exact example, meaningful for all people? No, but like, I think at the end of the day, when we're talking about being memorable, when we're talking about creating experiences for people, there has to be that like flavor of us in it. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes we have grandiose plans and it kind of flops. And that is also part of life. And so maybe you have a great day. Maybe you have a day on the beach. Maybe that's a great day for you. It's a good story anyway, right? And like, I love the time I climbed Mount Fuji, which we'll save for another show because we don't have time for that story. But I like almost died. And now it's one of my favorite stories to tell because I'm like, I almost died. But like, this is the like fun humanness, right? I guess I would come back to like the humanness of it. Where it's like humans creating relationships, telling stories, being in interactions. Someone uses the word interactions with other humans, right? So like, let's be human and our own version of what that looks like, the energy we bring to things. It's not about all of us bringing the same amount of energy to things. It's about bringing your energy to things because people need that. I always say I choose coaches who have like that cool, composed, like kind of granola energy because it's very opposite of mine. And I am trying to accomplish things to cool down and create space for myself. And I need that from someone else because I don't create that. I create energy and enthusiasm. That's part of my brand. And so when we all can just be ourselves, we have that like freedom to balance each other out and create the
On that note, let me ask everyone, how did you feel today? I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone in the audience for their contributions. Again, fantastic contributions. Thank you to the panel. And whether today was memorable for good reasons or bad, we don't want to hear it.
We were memorable.
I do want to share this, though. If you have something to say, if you would like to be a part of one of these episodes, please join us. digitaldownload.live. Be our guest. Fill out that form. Let us hear from you. We would love to have you on one of these days. Tim,
Be our
Adam,
guest.
Jensen,
Beauty and
Tracy,
Beast.
Alex, thank you very much. I think we've been cut off by LinkedIn already, but goodbye, everyone.